Hi everybody, I'm Pia from Stitches and Scraps and welcome to Lunchtime Live. This is episode 32 and for our demo today I'm going to show you and talk to you about whip stitch seaming. But before we get to that, I have lots of news and updates to share from Stitches and Scraps. So it's been a very busy week. Every day this week we've had a new post and there's another one coming out tomorrow. If you are watching, please say hi. Let me know you're here. I'd love to chat with you. And also all of the things I'm going to talk about, all the links to them, you can find them in the blog post for this Lunchtime Live episode, and I've linked to that blog post in the description on this video. So if you go there, you'll see everything we're talking about, all the links and all of that stuff. Okay, so let's get started with what's been new at Stitches and Scraps this week. We kicked off the week with a full tutorial on 3 different ways to start a crochet circle. I had done a quick demo on this a couple weeks ago in Lunchtime Live, but it wasn't cooperating with me and I got myself confused over direction. Which, you know, the perils of live video, right? But anyway, I made a full-blown tutorial of that that's much more cohesive, and that is on the blog. That was Monday's post, and then on Tuesday I posted, actually I think that was last Friday's post, yeah. And then Monday I posted a collection of 20 winter hats that you can crochet or knit. There are, I want to say this one was an even split, 10 knit and 10 crochet patterns. 7 of the patterns are mine, and then there's 13 other patterns if I'm not mistaken. A lot of great hats, so check that one out. And sticking with the keeping warm theme, the other new post here, the new pattern for this week, is this Tunisian twist ear warmer, which is super easy to make, guys. Even if you haven't done Tunisian before, it has tutorials for, well, actually there's 4 different tutorials you can look at to help you with this. There's one tutorial of actually how to make the whole ear warmer, like that's the whole tutorial. And then each of the stitches, if you look at this stitch here, the lighter color stitches, those are Tunisian knit stitches, and then these darker ones, these are Tunisian simple stitch. So it's just the 2 stitches alternating, and that plus the foundation row, I have separate tutorials for each of those techniques as well, complete tutorials just based on the technique. So all told, that plus the headband tutorial, there are 4 tutorials to help you make this headband. So you know, if you're new to Tunisian, this is a great pattern to start with. I also want to show you, it is seamed in here with a very messy whip stitch seam that is right here. And that's okay because it's totally hidden. But that's what we're going to talk about today, is whip stitch seaming and different ways you can use it, when to use it, when I prefer it, when I try something different, all of that kind of stuff. So after that, sticking with the Tunisian trend, there's a giveaway on the site this week, so be sure to check that one out. Mary Beth Temple is giving away her new book called Modern Tunisian, and it's a fabulous book, really interesting Tunisian patterns that, you know, use color blocking and bright colors and interesting combinations of the stitches. So it's all beginner friendly, but it's really very modern and not what you're typically probably used to seeing in Tunisian. It's not just miles and miles of Tunisian simple stitch. There's a lot of fun stuff going on in those patterns. So check that one out. And then I think that's it so far. Tomorrow I will have a tutorial for the make 1 stitches in knitting. That's the make 1 left and make 1 right. Those are increase stitches. And those are used in my baby sweater for the Raglan baby sweater cal. The next section for that is coming out on Tuesday, and that'll be the yoke section where you have those increases at the raglan lines here. So that's why I have posted a tutorial for those increases, or I will be on Friday. Let's see, what else do I have next week? you know, that's about it that's planned so far. I will have a tutorial next Friday. I just haven't decided what it will be yet. It might be winding yarn, because I did a video of that recently. Also for the Lunchtime Live, I haven't decided either. I can demo the make one to increases if that's what you guys want to see, but if there's something else you want to see, let me know. I'm happy to demo anything that you guys are interested in if I can fit it into the window here for Lunchtime Live. So speaking of the demo, let's go ahead and get started looking at whip stitch seaming. So I brought a whole bunch of swatches here for us to work with. I wanted to show you different ways that this seaming can be done. So here I have 2 crochet swatches, and first I'm going to start with seaming the top. Now when you do it, you want to have the right sides together, so like this. Oh no, that's my wrong side. Okay, so right side here. I guess I ended on a wrong side row, but that's okay. But you want to have the right sides together because the whip stitch is going to be on the wrong side. So let's say that this is wrong side and this is wrong side, okay? So my right sides are together. Now normally I would weave in the end of this string because I'd want to secure it, but in this case I'm actually going to be taking it out after. I'm just going to demo a few stitches. So I'll just hold it in place. So I'm going to zoom in here. There we go. Okay. And these are swatches I used for my teacher certification class. So to get started, I'm going to be going under both loops of both layers of the fabric. And again, this tail would normally be secured, but I'm just holding it in place because I'm going to come back for it. Now the reason it's called a whip stitch is because this yarn kind of whips around over the top. At least I'm assuming that's where it got its name. So the yarn, you came out the back, right? You're not going to go back in the back. That would be a running stitch. You're going to whip back over to the front and you're going to do exactly the same stitch again. This is the easiest seam because it's one motion that you just keep repeating. Go into the next stitch and do exactly the same thing again, right? So this works out really neatly if you have the same number of stitches. If you don't have the same number of stitches, like I think I might have one extra stitch on this row compared to that one. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Actually, I have one extra on the back one. So I'm going to just go in here. Actually, what I like to do is I like to go in the same one on the front and then the next one on the back. So that way it's used up 2 stitches on the back. It's kind of like a whip stitch decrease, right? There, like that. And then after that you can just keep going across, you know, one stitch after another, just keep going from front to back. So you're always going in the same direction, and it creates these pretty lines. If you want that as your texture, that's a very nice texture. Nothing wrong with that one. Okay, I'm just getting to the edge and then I'll show you, because the reason we did this on the wrong side is because when you flip it over to the other side, it'll actually be invisible. So there's my whip stitch, right? When I flip it over to this side, if it was the same color, if it was that same blue, you wouldn't see that very much, right? There's just these little horizontal lines. It's a lot more visible on this side where you've got those little diagonal lines. So this is typically how you would use a whip stitch if you were, for example, whip stitching squares together or something, but this isn't how I would do it for squares. This is how I would do it for like structural joins, like suppose I had a basket or something like that, sorry, like this, or you know, I don't know, the sole of a shoe or slipper. If I was putting it on, I'd probably do something like that for that. Now you don't have to use just the nice edges, and this is why I wanted to come all the way to the edge here, because you can whip stitch through anything. You can whip stitch these side edges, and this is single crochet, this is double crochet on this side. You just have to line it up and find even spots to go through. So here I'm not even really paying attention to what part of the stitch I'm going through. Whip stitch is a very fast and simple seam. It doesn't need to be really fussy if you don't want it to be. But it does leave this ridge, right? It leaves this seamed ridge depending on how far down you went. Like if I went down this far, it would leave this nice big seamed ridge, right? Let me take that out so I can open this up. Okay, so when you open it up, you just see that little bit of a stitch there. So it's not completely invisible, but it's great for seaming things like bags and stuff like that, as you can see on this swatch. You can also use it on knitting, and here I actually have a knitting swatch and a crochet swatch, and I'm going to show you seaming the two of them together through the side rows here to kind of emphasize what I was saying, that you can seam anything to anything using a whip stitch. So I would normally weave in this tail, but I'm not, because I'm going to be ripping this out. And the one thing you want to be careful of, well, two things you want to be careful of with whip stitch. You noticed that this kind of wrapped around the side here. See that? You want to be careful that you're making sure that the stitch just goes where you want it to go and doesn't get caught on anything. And then the other thing you want to be careful of is make sure you don't do this. See how I've brought my needle up on that side of the stitch? That's actually a blanket stitch. It's a different kind of stitch where it holds the yarn and creates horizontal lines across like that. That is not a whip stitch, that's a blanket stitch. So you don't want to do a blanket stitch. Other than that, try and keep your seam line even. Don't put one stitch up here and one stitch down here. But other than that, really simple to seam just about anything with a whip stitch. Okay? Now I do have a tutorial on whip stitching through, oh, let me show you the other side. There, see? You can hardly even see it on that one. So I do have a tutorial on whip stitching through wrong side loops only, and I want to show you that real quick. Here we have two blanket squares, and again I'm going to put my right sides together, right? Now this is the wrong side loop on this square, and this is the wrong side loop on this square. I want to show you what happens if I work through only those two wrong side loops. It actually is a really pretty seam for joining blanket squares, and this is what I do for joining blanket squares. Actually, it's not the only one I do, but it's my favorite one to do for joining blanket squares. So again, make sure it doesn't catch on anything, and we're just going front to back, but I'm only using those very specific loops. And I'll just do a few of these to show you. You can see this full tutorial on my site. The link is in that blog page that I've linked to in the description on the video. Okay, let me get one more and then I'll show you what this looks like. So when you fold this over, what it's done is it's left those free loops on the right side. So you get these nice ridges. Do you see that? These are the free loops that we didn't work into that are on the right side of the fabric. And the actual seam is kind of hidden in between. Now you do want to use the same color because it's not completely hidden, but you get kind of these little diagonal lines in between, which, actually could be cool in a contrast color too. But if I was to pull it a little bit tight, that is what that seam looks like. And that is one of my favorite seams for blanket squares. And that's about all I had for you for whip stitch seaming. If nobody has any questions, then I think that is it. Thank you for joining me again on another Thursday. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I hope you've been having a great week, and I will see you again right here next Thursday. Thanks for watching.